And we're back with story number 2. But before we get into story number 2, we do got some super chats I want to read real quick.
I bet we got a lot of super chats.
They got to do with the last story. So Clawmaster writes in and says, there's already a case like this to look at for comparison. The devs who worked on Squirrel Girls are currently in a lawsuit against Autumn Games for no pay in the last few months for $1.2 million. Colin Berry has become a member for 27 months. Shout out, and says, doesn't it take some money to get rid of C-suite like the old CEOs? They rather spend that money to cause issues than let it trickle down. I mean, come on, this is a story. It's the ever-going story, right? People are selfish is what it comes down to. Greed, all that stuff. Beginning of time, talked about it. Demon Hacker says, if this wasn't financial, the deadline would extend. Yeah. And then we'll do one more from Pretty Dude, who says, not so fun fact, this basically happened to the devs of Lego Island back in the 90s. The game was super successful when it launched, and the execs laid everybody off to avoid paying the bonus. Hate to see it. That's the type of greed that they talk about in the Bible. You know what I mean? Like when they started talking about the fucking 7 deadly sins.
Yeah.
That's what they were thinking about when they wrote that shit down. That's the heart of it. God damn. Story number 2. Like Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza was originally a Switch 1 game, Nintendo confirms. This is Rebecca Valentine at IGN. Donkey Kong Bonanza, launching next week, is a Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive, but that wasn't always the case. According to the game's developers, it was originally conceived as a Switch 1 title. Speaking to IGN in a new interview, producer Kenta Motokura told us that the game began its development cycle on Switch 1. However, as the team developed the voxel technology that lies behind Bonanza's destruction mechanic, it became clear that the best implementation of that tech would be on Switch 2. Director Kazuya Takahashi continued the explanation by referencing something called continuity of destruction, essentially a philosophy behind Donkey Kong Bonanza, where players are led to destroy a portion of the environment and receive a reward, which then reveals another area that can be destroyed for another reward, and so on and so forth. Takahashi said the team felt they could expand on that philosophy on the Switch 2. Quote, this allowed us to engage in creating a really extremely rich variety of materials in very large-scale changes in the environment on that new hardware. And when destruction is your core gameplay, one really important moment that we wanted to preserve was when a player looks at a part of the terrain and thinks, can I break this? Because that creates a very important surprise that has a lot of impact for them. And that was something that was best done on Switch 2. Well, but it's not really even just the processing power of the Switch 2 that I think attracted us to and gave us some interesting possibilities. There was also the device itself that offered things like mouse control, which you can use in co-op play for a second player to control Pauline's vocal blasts, or DK Artist, a mode where you can sculpt a large set of voxels, end quote. Notably.
That was a wild one. The mouse control got me. The mouse control really threw me when I read this. It's like, I don't get it.
They don't believe that.
Nobody
believes that. Oh, yeah, we kept it on Switch 2 because we like the mouse.
We got really excited when they said Switch 2 is going to have mouse control. So we were like, hold up, this can't come to Switch 1.
We gotta hold the horses.
Because you know the second player, your little brother or sister, the small child you have in your home, when they play the second player co-op, Pauline, we got to be on the mouse control.
Yeah, we can only do that on the mouse.
Not just going to be doing this the whole time.
We can only do that on the mouse. You know, you can't do that on the Switch 1.
What are we doing here?
We're lying is what we're doing. The article ends, notably another first-party Switch 2 game, Mario Kart World, had a similar path to release. It's so funny because, like, the first 3/4 of the statement, I'm like, oh, I buy that.
Yeah, you get that.
Yeah, like, you wanted to take advantage of the power of the Switch 2 to, like, you know, amp up the destructibility, make everything as destructible as possible, and, like, really lean into the experience of, oh, can I break that? And then you do, and it's like, oh, shit, all right, cool, that reveals the thing. That makes so much sense. I buy that. The fucking mouse part ruins it.
Yeah, the mouse part we could have just kept in the back pocket is right.
Yeah, that's like when you listen to like a classic album and there's like one song on it that's like when you're listening to Graduation and you get to Drunken Hot Girls and it's like, I don't like this. Yeah. Remove the song from the album.
I mean, minus the mouse controls, like you said, Bless, so perfectly. Yeah, it totally makes sense, right? I'm sure this game could probably be run on a Switch 1. It could have been a cross-gen game if we really wanted it to, but at the same time, we're trying to sell units. We want to take advantage of the hardware, and that the developers can look at that and say, hey, we can make an even better game. Plus, it will help us sell the Switch 2 because everybody's going to want to buy a Switch 2 to play this now. You say, hell yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do this.
Yeah. I'm like, I really like the philosophy of Nintendo, obviously they make so many weird decisions. Obviously, I hate when like so much of their stuff is like overpriced, or at least priced in a way where it's like, man, this does not feel consumer friendly. Nothing goes on sales, right? Like
Yeah.
all this shit, right? Like I hate all that stuff, but I think they do have such a good marriage of business and software sometimes when it is like, all right, we got the Switch 2 coming out, like let's put Mario Kart World on it, let's put Donkey Kong Bonanza on it, and like make those feel make that transition feel meaningful as far as
drawing the line, you got to come over.
we're
here.
drawing the line.
Yeah.
You gotta come. Like these are games that you can only play on the Switch 2, but they back it up with the sauce to make those games feel like no, this could only work on the Switch 2. You know what I mean? Like I look at Donkey Kong Bonanza and I'm like, I don't know if the Switch 1 can do this. I don't know if the Switch 1 is handling this. I played Mario Kart World and like the presentation of it, the scope of it, like could you have scaled that back to make it work on the Switch 1?
Yeah.
Sure. Like you probably could have, but
Yeah.
I think there is something special about playing that game on the Switch 2 and it being a 4K 60 FPS, like all this shit, and like it feels like I'm stepping into the future with Nintendo.
I totally agree with you, Bless. I like the hard line of like, hey, you got to jump onto this next console to experience that. I would love to see the business side though when we flip it of like, what do you mean this couldn't be a cross-gen game? Right? These past two titles, you're telling me they couldn't play on the Switch. Maybe they'd look a little bit different. Is the normal Nintendo player, the general audience, really going to be nitpicking of like, well, this looks like this here, that looks like that over on that one, and I got the, inferior version? No. They would be happy to buy a brand new Mario Kart, and I'm sure it would sell ridiculous as well, right? So it's like,
This episode's brought to you by Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. If you don't love your shades, exchange them for a new pair or simply return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team are always there to have your back with personal and fast support. Y'all know I've been outside a lot playing Pokemon Go, and it's such a great experience wearing Shady Rays when I'm out and about looking dope. Exclusively for you, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal. Head to shadyrays.com and use code FUNNY for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Again, go to shadyrays.com, use code FUNNY to get 35% off polarized sunglasses.
what is the business decision of not doing cross-gen? Because
the
you could
business decision.
easily, but I'm saying it's like there's an install base there though that would easily buy Mario Kart World and bump up those sales, right?
Yeah, but we're talking-
So you're saying there's enough people buying the console plus the hardware or the software over there to say, hey, we don't need to put it over on the Switch 1 still?
Yes.
It's wild.
1000%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
like
it's
you're
crazy.
talking about the Switch 2 is like the fastest selling console of all time, right? Like Nintendo, it's funny because I think a lot of people and I get it, right? I think a lot of people would call me hypocritical in the way that I talk about Nintendo versus the way I talk about like Xbox or PlayStation or whatever, right? But I think it is all about philosophy. It is all about what the strategy is and how much you lean into that strategy. And like that's why even though Xbox and Nintendo are virtually opposites in how they operate, right? Like there are things about how Xbox operates that I like, obviously things I dislike when we look at the layoffs and all that shit, right? But like I think there's a future in platforming, like or making your console more of a platform and Xbox Game Pass and all that shit, right? Versus Nintendo, where I think Nintendo has to draw that line. I think for them, it is a thing of our main commodity as Nintendo is our IP and our hardware, and our IP has to sell our hardware. So what happens if we made Mario Kart cross-gen and Donkey Kong Bonanza cross-gen? You have less people that feel like they have to buy the hardware.
You'd have me. I bought Switch 2 for the Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the only reason why I wanted to make this jump. I could have easily passed on this or played it on my Switch 1.
Yeah. And I think their business revolves around that. That's why you look at the slate of games on each of their consoles, and usually, not every time, but usually for most of their big franchises, you're getting one per console. It is, all right, here's one 3D Mario. Now you're going to have to wait a whole generation for the next one because we want to make sure we're drip fitting this and like maintaining the cadence to make you hunger for the next 3D Mario. Here's one. Maybe this last generation, here's 2 big Zeldas, right?
Yeah.
But we're not going to overdo it. Their advice to Ubisoft with the Mario v Rabbids was that, hey, only drop one. And Ubisoft dropped a second one, and like they saw that number dip, right? Because Nintendo knows the demand that their audience has for their things.
Now, my question to you is, they haven't done cross gen before? I thought on the Wii U to Switch
They did.
They had one that like crossed over, right? It was a
Zelda crossed over,
title.
but Zelda was like, if you remember, it took forever for that game to come out. It was originally announced for the Wii U,
Okay.
and it was like being developed for Wii U.
So
and
that was one of those like we had to put it on here because we
Yes.
announced it so long ago.
I believe Metroid Prime is the same way, right? Like the new
Interesting.
Metroid Prime, I believe, is Switch One as well. Kind of funny. Or chat, correct me if I'm wrong.
Really?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
Chad, am I wrong about that? I think Metroid Prime is on Switch One as well because they announced that forever ago on Switch One. I don't think Nintendo wants to go back on that. Nintendo's a weird company because any other company would just be like, "Fuck it, no, like we're just gonna cancel the Switch One version."
Yeah.
But Nintendo wants. I think Nintendo, like, there's an element to them where they're like, no, we promised it.
Yeah. It's
So
such
we'll
an
do it.
interesting one. Yeah, I would love to dive more into the sales on that because I totally agree with you of like you make it so you have to go buy the new hardware. But like the install base is so big on the Switch One of like it's odd because we see PlayStation, Xbox, like the first year is like, hey, you could also get it on Xbox One. You could get it on the Switch One. You have 4 major titles this year that could easily most likely be played on the Switch One.
Yeah.
Right? Sure, it wouldn't be up to snuff with the Switch 2 version, but that install base probably doesn't care. They would still spend 60 to 90 bucks on it. How much more would you make? But I like drawing the hard line. I like feeling
Yeah.
like I'm jumping into this generation for a reason. These games have to be played here. But in Nintendo's case, with such a large install base, I'd love to see those numbers of, hey, DK is on both. This is how much we sold.
Oh yeah,
You
that'd
know.
be fascinating.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do like the A/B test on that one. Story number 3. Speaking of Nintendo, Nintendo is ending the Switch game voucher service. This is Jordan Midler at VGC. Nintendo has announced that it is ending the Switch game voucher service. The service will conclude on January 30th, 2026, after after which time it will no longer be possible to purchase the popular vouchers. Nintendo Switch game vouchers allowed players to pay a lump sum for multiple game vouchers at once, which would result in the games they redeemed them for being cheaper. Nintendo has confirmed that the unused vouchers will expire 12 months after the original date of purchase. Nintendo hasn't said if it plans to introduce a new service that will also feature Nintendo Switch 2 titles. Do you remember this?
I know I was going to ask you. I don't even know what these are.
So this was like quite a few years ago where you would buy for like $100. Here's 2 game vouchers and you can redeem them for like Switch first party games.
Okay.
For like the ones that they actually
Yeah.
offered for it. And so like,
This would be like a good birthday present or like gift card use almost.
yeah, and it's a way to like, if you know you're gonna buy 2 Switch games, it's a way to
Okay.
save $20.
Save some money.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you partake in some of this?
No.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
No, I was like, there was never a time where I was like, I know, like these are the 2 Switch games that I want at the same time. I think it was kind of a weird service that like, if you knew what you're doing, you could probably get a lot of use out of this.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm like, I feel like there would be 1 or 2 major first party games a year that I could think of where I'm like, oh, I know I'm gonna get this, but I'm not thinking ahead far enough.
Of
Like
course.
in May, I'm like, oh man, I want Zelda, right? And then by the time I'll get around to my next one, it's like, okay, it's fall. Do I want to buy the vouchers or do I just want to buy the game kind of thing?
Okay.